commentary on the Second Ring of Power. Years went by before I wrote the Second Ring of Power. Don Juan was long gone, and the quotations from that book are memories of what he had said, memories triggered by a new situation, or a new development. Another player had appeared in my life. It was Don Juan's cohort, Florinda Mattis. All of Don Juan's apprentices understood that when Don Juan left, Florinda was left behind to somehow round up the last part of our training. Not until you are capable of taking orders from a woman without detriment to your being will you be complete, Don Juan had said. But that woman cannot be just any woman. It must be somebody special, somebody who has power and a quality of ruthlessness that will not allow you to be the man in charge that you fancy yourself to be. Of course, I laughed off his statements. I thought he was definitely joking. The truth of the matter was that he wasn't joking at all. One day, Florinda Donner Grau and Tasha A. Baylor returned, and we went to Mexico. We went to a department store in the city of Guadalajara, and there, we found Florinda Mattis, the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen, extremely tall 5 feet 11, lean, angular, with a beautiful face, old, and yet very young. "Ah! There you are!" she exclaimed, when she saw us. "The Three Musketeers. The Pep Boys Eenie, Meenie and Mo. I've been looking for you all over." And without any more to say, she took over. Florinda Donner Grau, of course, was delighted beyond measure. Tasha A. Baylor was extremely reserved, as usual, and I was mortified, almost furious. I knew that the arrangement was not going to work. I was ready to clash with this woman the first time she opened her daring mouth and came up with phrases like Eenie, Meenie and Mo the Pep Boys. Unsuspected things that I had in reserve, however, came to my aid, and prevented me from any reaction of wrath or annoyance, and I got along with Florinda superbly better than I could have dreamed. She ruled us with an iron hand. She was the undisputed queen of our lives. She had the power and the detachment to carry out her job of tuning us in the most subtle way. She didn't allow us to drown in self-pity or complaining if something was not quite to our liking. She was not at all like Don Juan. She lacked his sobriety, but she had another quality that balanced her lack: she was as fast as anything could be. One glance was sufficient for her to comprehend an entire situation, and to act instantaneously in accordance with what was expected of her. One of her favorite ploys, which I enjoyed immensely, was to formally ask an audience, or a group of people she was talking to, "Does anyone here know anything about the pressure and displacement of gases?" She would ask such a question in true seriousness. And when the audience responded, "No, no, we don't," she would say, "Then, I could say anything I want." True, and indeed she would go ahead and say anything she wanted. She would actually sometimes say such ridiculous things that I would fall on the floor laughing. Her other classical question was, "Does anyone here know anything about the retina of chimpanzees?" "No," and Florinda would say barbarities about the retina of chimpanzees. Never in my life had I enjoyed my time more thoroughly. I was her admirer and unbiased follower. I once had a fistula by the crest of the bone of my hip, a product of a fall that I had taken years before into a ravine filled with cactus needles. There had been 75 needles stuck in my body. One of them either hadn't come out completely or had left a residue of dirt or debris that years later produced a fistula. My doctor said, "That's nothing. It is just a sack of pus that has to be lanced. It's a very simple operation. It would take a few minutes to clean it out." I consulted with Florinda, and she said, "You are the Nagual. You either cure yourself, or you die." No shades of meaning. No double behavior. For a Nagual to be lanced by a doctor you must have lost your power. For a Nagual to die fistulated? What a shame. Except for Florinda Donner Grau and Tasha A. Baylor, the rest of Don Juan's apprentices didn't care at all for Florinda. She was a threatening figure. She was someone who never allowed them the freedom that they felt was their due. She never celebrated their pseudo-exploits of shamanism, and she stopped their activities every time they strayed from the warrior's path. In the corpus of the second ring of power, that struggle of the apprentices is more than manifest. Don Juan's other apprentices were a lost lot, filled with egomaniacal outbursts, each one pulling in his own direction, each one asserting his or her value. Everything that took place in our lives from that time on was deeply influenced by Florine de Mattis, and yet, she never took the front stand. She was always a figure in the background, wise, funny, ruthless. Florine de Donner Grau and I learned to love her as we had never loved before, and when she left, she willed to Florine de Donner Grau her name, her jewels, her money, her grace, her savoir-faire. Savoir-faire social skill. I felt that I could never write a book about Florine de Mattis, that if anybody ever did, it would have to be Florine de Donner Grau, her true heir, her daughter of daughters. I was, like Florine de Mattis, only a figure in the background, put there by Don Juan Mattis to break the loneliness of a warrior, and enjoy my passage on earth.